He did send in a few notes, so on a couple of items, so reminds me to look those. Yeah, that was super helpful. For 9C and D. Mm-hmm. What's the draw tonight?
Not since election. That's gonna be Monday.
Remember, just have them.
Two be sworn in. Good.
Good to go. All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Meeting of the Columbia Gateway Urban Renewal Agency Board. Crystal, would you call the roll, please?
And Richardson,
Present.
Walter Dinstead,
Here.
Emery, here, Kristen Lillevick, present, Marcus Swift,
Here.
Timothy McLaughlin,
Present.
Scott Hagee,
Here.
and Ben Ring is absent.
Correct. Item 4 is Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand with me if you're able.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 5 is approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Approved. Item 6 is election of officers. As you know, long-serving member Darcy Long has resigned for other responsibilities, so we need a new chair.
I nominate Dan Richardson for the position of chair.
I will second that.
It's very kind. I appreciate the vote of
thank you.
confidence. I am willing to serve, but I'm also willing to support Ben Ring, and I'd like to put his name in. I know that he has some interest, and he is a downtown business owner, so I think he would do a good job. So I would nominate Ben Ring. If there's a second, maybe we can do a split vote. I'm not sure if that's legal or not. Jonathan can guide on that, but I do nominate him for chair.
Well, I heard it, excuse me. I heard it first and a second. And so technically there needs to be a vote on the nomination of Councillor Dan Richardson as chair. And if that fails or the motions are withdrawn, then there can be something else. But yeah.
All right.
I made the motion. Do we have a second?
I did
Okay,
second it.
then we have a,
All right. Is there any debate or discussion? That was your chance.
Or withdrawal of the motion.
Withdraw. Motion.
No. All right. All in favor of the motion, aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Well, thank you for your confidence. I would nominate Ben for vice chair.
So Councillor Richardson or Chair Richardson now, so it seems.
Yeah.
There's a little nuance in the bylaws of the agency where the way that it's written is if a vacancy exists on the board, it will be filled at the following meeting that the vacancy happened at. And so with your ascension to the role of chair, you've left a vice chair vacancy in your wake. And as a result of this quirky bylaw, the way that it's written, that vote will happen at the next regular meeting.
All right, very
So,
good.
yeah. Sorry for that. I didn't write them.
No, let's follow the process, pedantic though it be.
Yes, I was opposed to Counselor Richardson.
We'll get that in the minutes. Thank you.
Okay, let the record reflect.
She still wants to know.
Any abstentions to the vote?
No.
All right. Item 7 is approval of the minutes from May 20th of our May 20th meeting. We've all had, I take opportunity to read and reflect carefully on those. Are there any edits or comments, or can we have a motion to approve?
I move we approve the minutes of the last meeting. Actually, I don't know if I should because I wasn't here.
Have you read?
I did read them, but I wasn't here, so I probably
Uh,
couldn't do that.
All right. Anybody else with a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes as presented.
All right, I'll go ahead and second. McLaughlin will second.
All right. Any discussion or edits?
I just wanted to say thank you. They were really, really easy to read, and so it was helpful to catch up on what I missed.
Yeah, good job. All right. All in favor of the motion? Say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Any abstentions?
Yeah, I need to abstain.
Well, as well, since I wasn't here.
Abstain.
All right.
I had to as well. I was not here.
Any opposed?
We don't have a quorum. Or enough for a yes.
We have to have a quorum for that.
You have to have a majority vote.
Abstain.
Please bring it back for approval at the next meeting so we won't have no illegal votes tonight, please. All right. Next item on the meeting is item 8, which is public comment. During this portion, anyone may speak on any urban renewal subject. I would say we would ask, I don't know if it's actually written in stone, but we'd probably ask to direct any specific comments on items coming up at that time. But regardless, it is mic is open for anybody that wishes to come forward and address the board. You have up to 5 minutes per person to speak on any urban renewal subject. Seeing no takers, I'll say thank you and move on to item 9A, which is a resolution number 25-004, a resolution accepting real property and authorizing the agency manager to execute a dedication agreement with the city of the Dalles for the Federal Street Plaza project. I have some staff report or comments on this.
Yeah, one second here.
Iggy unable to vote?
Thank you. Chair, members of the board, Joshua Chandler, Community Development Director, Agency Manager. So the first item here is adopting resolution number 25-004. So this is the resolution that's accepting real property, authorizing the agency manager to enter a dedication agreement with the city of the Dalles for the Federal Street Plaza. So as we all know, I think a lot of us are very familiar with the Federal Street Plaza. One of the steps in moving forward with that project is a step of a right-of-way dedication. So effectively what we're doing right now is Federal Street itself is a street. It's a public right-of-way. So the process that we are taking to develop the plaza is turning that right-of-way, effectively turning the right-of-way into property. So that process goes through something called a right-of-way vacation process. This was discussed at the June 9th City Council meeting. City Council did approve this vacation to move forward. One of the requirements of state law is that whenever land is vacated, effectively, It's split down the middle. One half goes to the abutting, a half goes to each abutting property owner. So as part of this process, we have had support throughout the process. One of the neighbors of the Craig's building, the other neighbor is the Urban Renewal Agency, the Tony's building site. So as conditioned with the approval of the right-of-way vacation, the process was that the abutting property owners rededicate to the city their portions of that land. So long story short, that's why we're here in front of you today. And this would be the process where it's the agency approving this rededication back to the city or to the city for use for the public plaza. We touched a little bit on the benefits of the Federal Street Plaza. I think everybody's really excited about the Federal Street Plaza. There's a couple of board members here sitting who are part of the ad hoc committee, still part of the ad hoc committee for it. It's a project that is, it's a city project, but it's something that the Urban Renewal Agency contemplated last year as we were updating we did our substantial amendment, updated the plan. So it is included. It was included in the plan. The agency has provided $150,000 toward grant assistance to assist in a $1 million Oregon State Parks grant. So the agency definitely has demonstrated that support, and this is really the final piece that the agency we can move forward with our support or the board's support. That's really long story short. I think the next step would be move to adopt resolution number 25-004 as presented.
Is there any discussion or questions from the board?
Well, I've never been in favor of closing the road, and I've brought up in the past my concern about being able to get emergency vehicles in there when there's a fire. And it looks to me like on all the drawings and stuff that the committee and everybody has pretty much decided that that's not going to happen, that it's going to be closed and there's no emergency vehicles are going to be able to go through.
Incorrect.
They will be able to go through?
Yes, there's going to be bollards installed in the alleyway so that emergency vehicles can literally drive into the plaza if they have to.
So how do you remove the bollards?
They'll be locked.
Yeah.
And
I'm not for it. I'm still
the city can unlock it.
I'm sorry. I just can't help but look at this from a firefighter's perspective, and locks on bollards delay things way too long. And I said that back when somebody brought up bollards. And I don't want to complain. I just, as a firefighter, I've looked at building construction, curbs and parking and stuff, and everything looks okay. And then when they finish, you roll in and like, why did they do that? You know, on different construction projects. So I just need to advocate for things that don't hinder suppression and access. And just in general, closing roads is always a concern to me. It just always creates problems for emergency responders. And the plaza, I understand that's what people want. And don't mean to, try to not allow people to have things they want. I just, I don't know. I just can't, as a firefighter, support this kind of development. But I'm pretty sure I'll be overvoted.
Any other discussion on this? Yes, sir.
Yeah, there's 4 of your colleagues on this board that have put a significant amount of time into this project. At none of those meetings did you show up to give your opinion on it. And at none of those meetings did anyone from Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue show up to say that this was going to be an issue. My guess is they would have. And my guess is it won't be permitted if it is actually a safety issue. So that would be my response. The bollards can be removed by emergency vehicles and delivery vehicles. We did take that into account. And so I'm obviously very much in favor of this, and I would just encourage you to get involved in the future if you have that input and actually show up to the meetings.
Other thoughts, discussions, or questions? Any questions from the audience, from the public, or thoughts? Do we have a motion one way or the other on this item?
I would move for the board to adopt resolution number 25-004 as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, and we've heard and had opportunity to read the staff report. Is there any further comments or discussions? Hearing none, let's take a vote. We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of the motion? Sorry, hang on one sec. Would staff feel better if the motion were as written, or do you feel like you have sufficient direction with the existing motion?
Existing motion should be fine.
We have a motion to accept special ordinance 25-606.
Wait a minute.
I'm sorry. Can we have just a repeat of the motion? I don't believe I heard the word special ordinance tonight, but I heard resolution.
Resolution.
Yeah, so this is resolution 25004. The special
Sorry.
ordinance is city council.
Sorry, you're right. I read the wrong thing. Marcus, would you reread or restate your motion?
Motion.
Since
I'm getting conflicting. I did not hear that. Counselor was talking to me and
Yeah.
showing me this. Can you repeat? Is it 25-606?
Nope. No, it's resolution 25004.
The right one then.
Sorry to cloud the issue.
Oh, I see. Let me look. Okay.
And it would be on page 39 of your packet if you're following
39,
along.
okay.
Yep.
So yes, so my motion was to adopt resolution number 25-004 as presented, which is on page 39 of the packet, which was my original motion.
Thank you. And thanks for restating that. We have a motion. We have a second.
I'll second that again.
Very good. All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
I
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? All right. Crystal, did you feel like you captured that? Excellent. All right. Next item of business is 9B. An amendment, the first amendment to the incentive program grant agreement with TD Third LLC for the Basalt Commons project on East 3rd Street. And I would ask staff to refresh us on the details of that.
Yeah, thank you. So some background here. On August 18th, 2023, the agency entered into two funding agreements with TD Third LLC, Hanlon Development LLC, and this is for the support of the Basalt Commons multifamily project at 523 East 3rd Street. This is currently the site of the former Griffith Motors. The developer proposes to demolish this and construct a 5-story building. It was originally proposed at 108 residential dwelling units. That has increased in the past 2 years to 118. At the time, 116, excuse me. Thank you. At the time it was submitted, it was estimated about a $26 to $29 million project. That has increased up to $31 million in the 2 years. So staff provided a breakdown in the staff report going over each of these funding agreements. The first funding agreement is the one that it's the topic for this evening. This is the incentive program grant agreement, the IPGA. And this authorizes up to $1 million to pay for residential SDCs for the project. So these costs, these funds are paid directly to the city of the Dalles and the Northern Wasco County Parks and Rec District. So those are to offset the different system development charges specific to the residential use here. Also, one thing to note is this is the actual cost of system development charges. It doesn't mean it's a lump sum. It is the actual cost. So we've been working with the developer, even taking into account these increases of 8 units. That was contemplated initially. The $1 million was contemplated to take into account any changes in SDC rates, and we do see a rate increase every year with the Parks Department. So this actually contemplated for those increases as well, and it's still covered. There's no change this evening for the total amount that's being requested here. On the separate agreement, the second agreement is the development funding agreement. And this is actually, this is for $730 direct equity contribution to support the project. This is not discussed this evening because this is not a timeline. There's not a timeline, a strict timeline associated with the DFA like there is with the incentive program. So at the time of approval, developer estimated the construction would begin in summer 2024 and be completed by spring 2026. So therefore, both of these agreements were structured around that timeline with an original deadline of 2 years following that agreement. So that's August 18th, 2025, coming up here next month. So the developer is requesting an extension to this timeline for the IPGA, which is currently, as I mentioned, set to expire August 18th. The extension is needed for some additional time to finalize construction financing and prepare the project for permit ready status. In their request letter, the developer, which is attached at attachment A, the developer explains that there's been over 18 months of active outreach to over 150 potential lenders. They have secured a lender willing to issue a term sheet. And that requires a signature here as of today, actually. So this the decision this evening is really is instrumental in this term sheet and moving forward for the developer. The developer represented also that there's some private investments. Developer represented in the final discussions with private investors. There's some initial gap that they are trying to close here, and they estimate that this will, some of those closing discussions will occur this month as well. The request comes really after a period of time. We've seen a lot of, craziness, if you will, in the economic climate. There has been marked by a sharp rise in interest rates that has impacted this project significantly. The developer has spent $2 million in the period of time, and this is for pre-development activities, architectural redesigns, engineering work. And the developer is, affirming that they have their continued commitment to the project and emphasize the importance of the $1.73 million that has been invested into the project. So as far as some progress to date, in addition to the $2 million, the project has secured 2 separate land use approvals. One was a conditional use permit for the height increase. The next was a development permit. That's a site plan review. Both of those approvals were appealed, one to City Council, one to the Planning Commission. Each of those appeals were denied by the approving authority, thus affirming the initial land use decision for them. Included in the applicant's request letter, those unanticipated appeals appear to introduce additional costs and uncertainty to the process. So in May 2025, the developer submitted a building permit application. So the full building permit has been submitted. Staff, engineering, the city's engineering department, city planning department has reviewed that information. We provided some revisions back to their team. And I believe even as of today, our engineering team was meeting with their team to go over some of these details. So we're talking about like the real fine tuning of getting this building permit processed. Also, in April 2025, there was they do have an approved demolition permit. There's also, I missed a land use process that this went through. There was another process to replat the property. So it used to be 3 lots. So they've combined it all into 1 lot. So my apologies. I did not include that in the staff report, but that also occurred in this period of time. So as you can see on the land use side of things, building permit side of things, the developer is moving the needle further and further with this project. There is movement happening with the project. As required, the developer, with the IPGA, the developer must submit documentation confirming that adequate project funding and evidence that demolition has begun or the demolition contract has been executed prior to the city formally issuing the building permit. Upon issuance, the agency will make direct payments to the city and the Parks District in the amount not to exceed $1 million. So that's part of this incentive program agreement. So there are steps and milestones the developer needs to meet before the city issues the building permit. Before the city issues the building permit, the agency must pay the city, so it's a little bit of a cycle there. The staff's recommendation follows the request from the developer. Developer has requested a 6-month extension. In reviewing their request, we extend it. Our request here would be to align, about 6 months. It's just shy a couple days here and there to February 18th, which coincides with our regularly scheduled meeting. So we would be able to provide the board with an update the night of a meeting. So that is something that we wanted to align this with. Throughout the letter, the applicant or the developer has mentioned that this work, the hope to move forward by the end of the year, but in further discussions with them, they have requested the additional 2 months tacked on, past the end of the year. And with the many office closures, holiday schedules that we have, this seems like something that can be, that staff can get on board with. If the board approves this extension, staff also recommends amendment to the incentive program agreement that would have the developer provide the agency with monthly written updates throughout this extension period. So currently how it works, the agreement in place, 6-month updates, but now we're asking, it is a 6-month extension. We are recommending that we get updated basically before every meeting, so I can provide the board, Jake and I can provide a board with the updates, so we know where the progress, where the project sits as it moves forward. So budget implications. The incentive program was launched in August 2022. And the approved budget for that fund in fiscal year 25-26 is it's a little over $3.1 million. So there are sufficient funds. Also, the Basalt Commons, both funding agreements are clearly laid out and specified in the budget itself. So with all that, staff's recommendation is to move to authorize the agency manager to enter a First Amendment to the incentive program grant agreement with TD Third LLC as presented. And with that, I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Hanlon, I will ask you to come up and give any thoughts in a minute, but first I want to ask the board if they have any initial questions of staff or thoughts to share. Anybody have questions for Josh, Jake, or other staff? No. Okay. Ms. Hanlon, do you care to address the board at all, or do you are welcome to if you wish. You're not required to.
Microphone, please. And there's a switch.
Oh, there. Does that work?
Can you hear on the Zoom?
Hello?
Yep, okay, you're set to go.
I think Josh did a really good job laying it out. I would just say, we have worked just sort of tirelessly on this. It's been it's been the hardest process I've worked on, and it's been long, exhaustive. We've done every single thing humanly possible. I can't think of anything else we could have done to get it where it is today. And we're close, but there's still a big gap. But that's why we need you guys, is to get over that last hurdle. So if you have any questions, I have multiple timelines and things that we've done, and I'm happy to provide you with monthly updates.
Questions from Ms. Hanlon on the board?
No, I have none.
We all clear on the situation and the ask?
Yes.
I will say, Mary, in conversation that I have heard from one or two people, nothing but support for the project, which I think is potentially, a game changer for downtown. And I've supported you in conversation and on various boards, and I still do. And I hope. I will say, I think there's probably some folks that feel like 6 months is it's game time. That we.
Oh, don't worry. It is for us too. It might not, if it's not going in 6 months, my partner's already questioning. He's spent $2 million and we're still struggling. So
I
he's already questioning the
hope and I hope.
rationale to keep moving. So we'll be right there with you.
Very good.
Yeah.
Comments? I should say, questions from the public? In light of hearing, seeing one, sir, please come forward. Mary, you may have to yield the microphone.
Thanks, Mary.
No,
We need you on the.
We have a number of people online that just cannot hear anything that's not mic'd.
Well, I'm not sure of your protocols,
Okay.
but I just got the little blurb on the news and I looked at the building and is it already confirmed it's a go?
She has some permits. She has, a plan. It's private enterprise. She has some incentive funding from this agency. And the question before us is whether we extend that. It's been requested to have that portion of that extended for 6 months. So that's the question. Yeah.
My question was, have we really considered parking if you've got 118 new residents and that's over 100 cars? You might as well close Ace Hardware, Zim's, River Tap, a variety of businesses around the structure because there won't be any place for people to park. I've gone to Ace and had problems parking and we don't even have a structure down there.
So there are also is an opposite viewpoint that 118 people will be living in the vicinity of those businesses so they can patronize them. But also, yes, parking has been considered several times over.
Okay. That was, I'm just worried about the businesses that we have by putting 118, possibly 118 cars in that area, because a lot of times, if you go to Zim's and there's 15 people in the bar, there's at least 12 cars in their parking lot. And are the 118 people going to be restricted to street parking? Is there underground parking for them? Is there any kind of, we've set aside 2 major parking lots back here just for employees, basically, so that the businesses can operate. And now we're going to bring in 118 people and they can park anywhere.
Well, we'll see if that happens. But yes, there has been a lot of conversation. We have a parking study on that's pretty fresh, on how to keep things from getting gummed up. And it's worth a robust discussion. There's been a robust discussion. It's probably worth some more, but we're not going to debate that tonight. It's a legitimate question. And to answer you, I think there's been a lot of thought given to it.
We have a request for your name and address, please,
Yeah.
for the record.
Steve Boston, 412 West 10th.
Thanks, Steve.
I can confirm that parking came up right away. Now, is there going to be issues? I don't know. I can't predict the future, but it has been discussed. I can guarantee that. So
Are these going to be low income houses or are they going to be fairly
market rate.
market rate?
Market rate. Yeah.
How does, if you've got 118 residents, how does that go into 5 floors? The way I did the ad, or the addition, to begin with, I had 116, and that averages out to about 29 rooms per floor on a 4-floor.
I'm going to cut you off a little bit just because we have a question before us and a bunch of other questions, but the developer who has all of the fine details at her fingertips is sitting right over there and is probably could answer any of your questions much better than I could.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you for your time.
You bet. Any other questions on the question or questions of staff? Anything else from the board? Are we ready to consider? Is there a motion to be had from the board on item 9B?
All right. Chair, based on staff recommendation, I move to authorize the agency manager to enter a first amendment to the incentive program grant agreement with TD Third LLC as presented.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Commissioner Hagee has seconded the motion. Is there discussion of the motion? Are there questions or discussion from any board members? Seeing a shaking of heads, I will call the vote. All in favor of the motion to authorize the agency manager to enter into that amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there anyone opposed? And are there any abstentions? I see none. Motion passes. Our next item of business is 9C, a reimbursement request for pre-agreement expenses from the Dalles Mint LLC. Staff, do you have some thoughts?
I have a staff report.
Thank you.
Thank you again. So on May 6th, 2025, the Dalles Mint LLC applied for a $300,000 grant through the Urban Renewal Incentive Program for continued renovations at the Mint Building at 710 East 2nd Street. The request included, tenant improvements, building upgrades, system work. The request also included reimbursement for a substantial amount of work that had been completed prior to any executed agreements. So at the May 2025 meeting, staff recommended denial of this reimbursement of prior work, consistent with the program guidelines, and proposed limiting funding to only documented eligible and future expenses. The board conditionally approved up to $250,000. We still have an agreement that was approved, directing staff to work with the applicant on a compliant scope. Despite this, the applicant continues to seek reimbursement for previously incurred costs. So the process to date is the applicant first submitted a request in April 2023, which was categorized at that time with the old incentive program language as a mixed use development. But as you may remember, mixed use developments used to be defined in the incentive program as adding one dwelling unit. Although the Mint Building has a dwelling unit inside, they were not adding it. So therefore, we classified it as a $50,000 commercial grant. The applicant later pursued a larger grant based on some additional information and scoping, which staff evaluated using a very conservative ROI model. I know we've gone round and round about the ROI. Jill, I'm so glad that you're on the board to kind of assist us through this. So at that time, the request was for 206. Is my time up? Oh, sorry about that.
Alert.
So at the time, it was a $206,000 request in front of the board, which in our calculation yielded about a 52-year ROI, which was well above a target that well, at that time, we targeted a 16-year benchmark. Staff instead recommended $115,000 at that time, and that was broken up as $65,000 through a funding agreement, a separate funding agreement, and then $50,000 to the incentive program. So in total, it would have been $115,000. This is 28% of the project cost. The board overall expressed, their general support for the project. I think the board has expressed their concerns for the Mint building renovation every time that it's been discussed. But deferred action pending a more refined proposal. Staff did at that time mention that program funds would be available and reserved through fiscal year 2029. So then in 2024, the agency ended up pausing the incentive program and awarding any awards due to maximum indebtedness limits. So a $6.1 million maximum indebtedness increase was adopted through the substantial amendment December 2024, which restored the program back to its capacity. But in April 2024, the applicant did receive a $50,000 grant for eligible work. However, as I mentioned at the last meeting in May, the applicant has requested reimbursement of $250,000 for previously incurred expenses, citing the hardships caused by the program pause. So policy considerations here. The guidelines clearly state that costs incurred prior to execution of an agreement are ineligible. The applicant acknowledged this policy in previous submissions, meaning they signed the application for an incentive program. These guidelines clearly say that those funds are ineligible. No agreement exists for the current reimbursement request, and staff has not verified the scope, timing, or public benefit of the completed work. So reimbursement in this context does a couple things. It seems to undermine the agency and the program's integrity and public accountability. It opens the door for other members of the public to believe they would also be eligible for their own retroactive funding from the agency. It limits the agency's ability to condition support on performance. It'd be very difficult for us to check some of the work, what the state was before the work was done. Just overall difficulty. And it could complicate eligibility for future program awards. So as requested at that meeting, the city attorney did look into this further and confirmed that the agency is prohibited from reimbursing expenses under the program, but the agency itself has the authority to enter a separate funding agreement if they choose. This is beyond the scope of the program. A development, as we just discussed, a development funding agreement, like the agency entered into a development funding agreement and an incentive program for the Basalt Commons project. So it's not unheard of that we enter into two separate agreements for a project. However, do want to advise the board the difference with the Basalt Commons request, most notably, is the fact that this request seeks for reimbursement of expenses that have already incurred without agency approval or oversight. So the current request and options, the applicant seeks reimbursement of $250,000 for $540,000 in total claimed costs, later revising that amount after discussions with staff down to $430,000. Staff has not received adequate documentation to verify eligibility or scope. The reimbursement could be considered through a separate funding agreement, as I mentioned, if that is the board's prerogative, outside of the incentive program. So if the board wishes to fund the request, staff would appreciate some clarity on how the reimbursement would impact the applicant's future program eligibility, meaning we've now increased the ceiling of funding to $300,000. They have received $50,000. So they still, through the incentive program, are eligible for $250,000. However, if you were to reimburse costs, we wouldn't run that through the incentive program. We'd put it through a separate funding agreement, meaning they could recoup $250,000 of expenses and still be eligible for $250,000 through the incentive program. So that's something to consider because we would have to treat them separately. If the board makes the exception here, the board's direction on and including criteria for handling future cases would be appreciated. We would be setting a precedence for reimbursing costs. We talked about a slippery slope last time. I understand the applicant doesn't appreciate mentioning the fact that it's a slippery slope, but I think it does. We want to be blunt. We want to be clear with you. Staff does not support reimbursing costs that have already been incurred. That is why we are bringing this in front of you today. So the board alternative and staff's recommendation, move to deny the reimbursement request submitted by the Dalles Mint LLC on the basis that expenses were incurred prior to entering into any agreement with the agency. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions.
Questions from the board for staff? I have none. Mr. Schechtel, do you feel like you would like to say anything tonight? Please approach. You know the drill.
My name is Tim Schechtel. I'm a business owner in downtown the Dalles. I live at 3511 Sandlin Road. Part of the board packet was a letter that we drafted. Did everyone get an opportunity to read that? I would ask if you have any questions of me, if in fact you read that and understood that and made a note about something that you wanted to ask me about. No.
I kind of had a question. I looked at the drawing of the building, and one of my big things I push for is fire suppression. I understand your building has already been equipped. And
we did that. That was our intention.
That. So I noticed there was an apartment in the building, and I guess I believe there's likely sprinklers in the apartment, but I just have no way of knowing for sure. So I was going to ask you if that's already been included.
So Bell Design did a code compliance survey in 2023, and there are several areas in the building that are separated by firewalls and fire doors. So it was not requested at that time.
The apartment is not?
It is not, but it is. There's a firewalls and fire doors that separate those areas. And then US Cellular has a computer center there for their cell tower, and that's separated by a fire door and two fire doors.
Maybe I'm wrong about this, but part of the deal was you put in all the sprinklers before we were set up to, really include reimbursement for some of that, and you're looking to get the cost of the sprinkler system back and some other things. That would be a ask after the construction was done.
Well, I want to clarify. Josh and I have had conversations about the timeline, that in 2023 we were offered some money, including a $50,000 ad, so it would have been about $115,000. we were not able to accept that. We did not refuse it, but we were unable to accept it because we had a code compliance issue that we did not budget for, which at that break in time, it was like 140,000 before we got the clearance from building codes about the separation of spaces. So we were able to reduce that, but we didn't have any money, and we started working on this grant proposal. We secured money in 2022. We went forward with Steve Light. We had kind of a unified presentation. They would be the benefit or the benefactor of most of this work. So we said, time-wise, we were in almost May, and their busy season at the brewery goes from May till the end of September or Thanksgiving on a good year. So we just had no real choice to go forward at that time. So we went back. I asked, before we left that meeting, I asked Chair Darcy Long if we could come back next year. We would go and work on this proposal and see if we could make this go with, number one, additional funding.
Yeah.
So we asked if we could come, and we asked if there would be funds, and the answer was yes. So we worked from, through the summer. We really didn't do anything major, but we were making preparations. We had the funds. We were paying interest payments on that, as well as principal. Principal. And so there were preparations that we could do. Some of it may have been eligible, and some maybe not. But we spent, by the end of 2023, we'd spent $103,000 just in preparing. So,
well, I guess from my perspective, I mean, you're a business owner and you have priorities that are understandable. And my kind of single-minded goal is, if there's some way urban renewal money could be used to sprinkler that apartment, I'm going to vote yes for that. That's not going to help you with your business venture, but
no, I understand you.
Single-minded goal. And so I just want to let you know where I was coming from. And I just have one vote and everything. So if you do ask for money for additional fire suppression in that building, it might not go through, but I'm going to vote for it. But as far as what they're saying, that we don't normally reimburse once the expense is made, and I understand that. And I don't want to tamper down your ability to build your business, but I also understand that part of the issue.
I think you were at a meeting when the floral shop, what's the name of that hotel? Yes, Sigmund's, was it wrestling with the same issue of having to put a fire suppression system in, and he was here and got a grant, and then asked if he could come back after they got numbers for the fire suppression system. But I contributed to that conversation. I think Kristen asked a question about, because she knew that I was having to deal with fire suppression, and the question was, do I have to do the whole thing? And I said I would, for the difference in doing one floor and doing the upper floor. It made no sense to me. So I'm an advocate for safety as well. Just the flat out economics of another $50,000 or $60,000 on top of what we didn't expect was, we had to go with, it was okay. It was not required to sprinklers, but we have an alarm system. We have a pull. I mean, there's pull stations in those areas. There's fire extinguishers. So,
Segments, I mean, there's what the rules already require, and then there's me pushing to go past that.
I understand. I appreciate that.
To people that are willing to make that a priority, and I think you understand where I'm coming from. I keep thinking
I do. Thank you.
Safety and stuff like that, and it's just, something I can't get rid of. It's always on my
I
mind.
appreciate that. So I really want to go back, move on from where we were at 2023 and have to go back and refigure, get updates on all of our quotes from local contractors for all the different aspects, including the fire suppression folks. And we had to get a building permit. I mean, there was a lot of work done between spring of 23 and winter of 24 when we came back. We had to get some more money. We had to go back and take another loan. So that in itself took some time. It was probably around, well, actually we had one loan, we bumped it up, we added to that, we took out one loan and replaced it with another. But that gave us a significant amount additional money to pay for the fire suppression system. In order to get the building permit, it was required that we had a signed contract with a fire suppression company. In order to get on the fire suppression company's schedule for that year, they asked us to sign an agreement in January. We had no reason to believe that we would be stalled. We were not informed of any issues about that. We were working with Josh and Dan, intermittently when we needed to present something. How is it going? We would give updates. So by the end of January, we had signed an agreement and we were issued a building permit for that year because there was no indication that we would not be going forward. When we had a meeting, the first part of March was when we had kind of updated our numbers and showed what we had was these were eligible. We were having Dan Spots look at those numbers and work with us to get that application completed so we could go forward. At that meeting, he said, there's some issues have come up. We don't know if we can fund it. That was kind of a shock. We said, well, how long? How long will it take to fix this? He said, well, a few months for sure. Okay. Well, that would put us out to like maybe July. So that was kind of the end of it. We kept asking, but we had to look at what we'd already committed to. We had a substantial loan. We needed a building permit to even do anything. We also needed to be on board with the fire suppression system. So we made that commitment to go forward, and then there were no funds available. I had this discussion with Josh, well, we did it without that, but without approval, but there was no approval to be made. It was never offered saying, well, we can approve this and you could go and the money will come, or you can get it when we get the money, that we can go forward. But that never materialized into an actual option. So we were kind of backed into a corner, not of our making, but we were in the middle of it. So that in itself is the word I'm looking for. It's a systematic error. Some systematic error occurred in the program, but we really didn't have anything to do with that. We had, valid contracts, we had valid bids, we had numbers, we had some not to exceed numbers. I think we were really confident in those numbers. And then we had told people, this is going to happen. Here's the sequence of time. And then boom, what do we do now? So it was either start or wait another year, or who knows how long before those funds would be available. So it was a real bind for us, real bind. And the interest is ticking. We're not getting things. We have no revenue for these spaces that the Free Bridge was going to occupy. There were serious economic questions that we didn't expect to deal with, So I think, and Commissioner McLaughlin said that, is this a one-off in the last meeting? Is this a one, I'm getting the right word. Is this just a one-time deal? Which I believe it is. I believe it is an unusual circumstance. If there was a systemic failure in the program, everyone in the system is somewhat accountable. If it's a systematic, that's what I'm starting to say. But when an organization, everyone is accountable, then really there's no one who is accountable to that. Does that make sense? It seems to me that there was something went wrong, but we had no input on that. We didn't have any options. And so if you treat this as a one-off and you have the authority to do that, I can't see, if you have made a repair or an adjustment to whatever the problem was, you're probably certain that it was not going to happen again. I mean, I would assume that if the remedy is there, you've made additional protections or something so it doesn't reoccur. So it's really not a precedent. It really won't become a precedent because it won't meet the same standards. So I'm not asking for something extraordinary. I'm asking to you for your help. We want to get this project done. And Steve was going to be here tonight. He has a medical emergency in his family. He called me at the last minute. So he was going to be taking part of this discussion and presenting it as well. He told me 2 days ago that he really needs this project. He needs it done or he can't develop his business. So there's this whole waterfall effect, domino effect that has occurred. And so there's a lot at stake. And we have been harmed by that. They have been harmed by that. I'm not trying to point the finger at anybody, but this is a one-off. I don't think you would be setting a precedent. If you have the authority to make this decision, I'm asking you to just make that. We're asking for 250. I'm going to spend 100,000 of that 250 to complete that project, at least to get it to where Freebridge can be occupying that space and expanding their business. I will receive some income, but it will be not a lot. We have been successful in renting our space, almost every space in that building for 20 years, minus a couple of years where there were some issues. Commissioner Amory was one of the tenants there. But that's because we had reasonable, affordable rental rates, and we still do. So we're not making ourselves rich. We're putting our funds into a long-term development, which my partner's sitting up there online, that we knew this was a long-term development, and we took a building that was marginal and we have made it into something, and that's why we're here. We need your help, and we will work with Josh, whatever needs to be done to verify all the work we've done. We have the receipts, we have the contracts, we have the checks and bookwork to provide to show what we spent our funds on, and the greater part of those funds are all eligible parts of the project, that as far as we know. So
I'll just make a couple of comments if you don't mind. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, Mr. Stevens, go ahead.
Okay, I'm Rich Stevens. I'm from Park City, Utah. I have about a 30-year history with the Dalles, owning property up on 3 Mile Road and being involved with Tim with the Mint Building for a couple of decades now. I can agree with his pain. He nor I have ever taken a distribution of any profit from that building. Everything we've always gotten has gone back into it, essentially. And it was our decision a couple of years ago. We just had to work in the now. we had to move forwards. We didn't want to delay things. I think there's a lot of good things happening on the east side of Second Street, and we got Freebridge Brewery in there, and they were sort of moving and shaking, and so we wanted to try to, improve things for them. So we've, and obviously, we had believed there might be some funding available down the road. We had a couple of hiccups in that, and I'll just mention the incentive program versus the one-off. I think that if we are able to, with your consideration, be granted what we're requesting, we would also decline going back for an incentive program. We understand we don't qualify for that based upon what Josh mentioned. But we would not go back and ask for another 250,000 or something of that variety as was possibly suggested. So I think that, obviously the goal of the Dalles is making things work downtown and improving it for everybody. And certainly if we're talking about a bunch of new residents downtown, they need places to go. And I think the Mint Building is a great place for that and has even better potential. We just need to finish the project and move forwards. I appreciate your consideration. Thank you very much.
Well, do you agree that it seems like one of the main stumbling blocks here is you incurred an expense, you did some improvements to the building, and they're all good things and stuff, and now you're wanting to get reimbursed for some of those expenses. Is that correct?
That's what we would use some of the funds for, yes.
And I think that's the big problem. I believe that's the big problem. So what I would advocate is instead of trying to get reimbursed, think of some other things that would fit and come back with a totally new proposal that doesn't ask for reimbursement. Does that make sense?
Well, if you don't take into consideration that we expected funds to be available. We came along and we were at a point and all of a sudden they were just not there.
Expected to have more hair than I have right now.
Okay.
That always happens.
You like staff to respond, Commissioner?
Fine with me.
Yeah. Okay. I think we all feel for the plight here. The program did not have any systemic issues. The program operated exactly as it was supposed to. They applied for $50,000. They received $50,000. They signed the contract, and we provided the money to them. What was going to be the additional money to get up to the $115,000 was a development funding agreement that was offered, and it was never agreed to, and it was never implemented. And that is outside of the program. Since that time, up until 2 months ago, the program was still operating in the same amount. They did not have the opportunity to come back to the program. It would have had to have been a development funding agreement for anything else. We have since increased the actual incentive program to $300,000 from $50,000. That increase of $250,000, the board at the last regularly scheduled meeting authorized a new agreement with the Mint for expenses into the future. You heard from the applicant tonight that they have about $100,000 left to do to complete the project. We have, staff has went and did a walkthrough of the Mint building. We have asked for information on what costs and exactly what they plan to do. One of those that was not on the list was the sprinklering of that additional residence. That would absolutely be eligible, or 70% of that would be eligible if they chose to expend funds on that. We have the ability to enter into an agreement that will cover these expenses for expenses into the future. And we made sure that it was up to $250,000 so that if they chose to increase what they're currently thinking of the $100,000 of expenses in order to renovate the building, if they wanted to spend more money, they would have access to the 50-50 grant for that. The issue here is that the applicant is asking for in essence, a development funding agreement that is completely separate from the program to reimburse for past expenses. What staff is saying is we want to ensure that the program is kept whole, that we are kept out of any legal jeopardy, that the program continues to operate as it is. The decision for the body is, would you like staff to prepare a development funding agreement to reimburse for the $250,000 of expenses that you've heard the staff's concerns? And that would be the direction at this time. I think staff has had many conversations with the applicant, and we have done everything we can to ensure that they can continue moving forward with construction at the pace they can. Because right now, as I understand it, the applicant is not doing any construction because they are waiting for a final decision by this board. Based on your decision by this board, they will hopefully come back to us if the vote is in the negative, that you will not reimburse, then staff will do everything we can to expedite, to ensure that the expenses into the future, that we can get that agreement in place as quickly as possible so they can go back to construction.
I think I understand, and I'm supportive of the staff's recommendation in that regard, and encouraged that you are aware and have brought up that there is possibility of more money coming, but not a reimbursement, unless this board says differently.
Just to be clear, it would be a reimbursement for the expenses incurred in an agreement.
Okay.
It's not a reimbursement for expenses because that is one other option that the board has done in the past, and this goes back years. Is there have been instances in the past where the board had pre-funded for people who were tight on money. They would give some money in advance, and that's something I'd never come across in government, and that's something that the board had done in the past. It sounds to me that this is an instance where there is a cash flow issue.
I would agree with that. Can I comment?
Yes, but I would like the board to be able to ask questions here. So please, I think you've stated the history and the position pretty well. And I do want folks to have time to deliberate and ask questions. But if you feel like you have a opportunity to wrap up, please do.
Kind of lost my train of thought in that.
Could I ask one question, and that is the funding, my understanding the funding occurs after we've already paid for it, though. So in other words, there are no funds distributed until the work is completed, and then at that point in time, reimbursement is considered. Is that correct?
That is the base of how the programs work in government. There has been limited experiences in the past where the Urban Renewal Agency has provided funds up front to help in instances where there was a cash flow issue. It is usually considered in government to be bad governmental decisions, but I can tell you it is something that other agencies ask for on a regular basis on large transportation projects, things like that, where you've got millions and millions of dollars that you need to front load projects. So it does occur in government. It's just highly frowned upon in most instances, unless it's dire.
And I would say that would be an engaging question, but not this evening's question, right? We're focused right now on a request for reimbursement outside the agreement, already expended and work already done. Board, do we have questions or thoughts from anybody on the board? Please, Kristen.
I'm so sorry. First, this is rough. It's rough for me up here, sitting here listening to you. I feel so badly. I came onto the board when we were first experiencing the issue that came to light. I believe it was in April or May of 2024, and so I can't speak to anything prior to that. I'm sorry. But I love what you do. I'm so proud of the Dalles because of part of what you've done. And so that's why sitting here is so hard, just listening to you. And I want to give you that attention and the presence that you deserve, and hearing you out here. And I don't have much beyond that to say other than I'm so sorry. I've been in somewhat of a position with my own restaurant, that was very similar, although hinging on different funds. So my heart goes out to you, and I apologize.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes, thank you.
With other folks' permission, I'll read just a comment that Councilor Ring sent to Josh and myself. He's out of state. He's not available for this evening, but he did send comments on this and one other question from Councilor Ring, item 9C. He says, I oppose this request because it opens the door for future reimbursement claims made outside of formal agreements. This is not an acceptable way to conduct public business. We have a responsibility to safeguard public funds, and that includes ensuring all expenditures are tied to clear, negotiated agreements in advance and not after the fact. I hope that's acceptable to include. I've sent comments in on meetings that I've been absent for, and so I thought to share his view on that. Any other questions about the details of the happenings and the decisions, or any other thoughts the board wants to share? I can't tell. Commissioner Hagee, are you looking to speak, or?
I don't know. This is obviously a challenging situation, has already been discussed. I mean, clearly we want to help the project. We appreciate the building there. We want to see it be successful. It's so not what we do in terms of reimbursing after the fact. It's, unless there's an agreement prior, to that. So, as much as I want to help, and I think we generally want to help, I think helping for this specific request is a difficult thing for us to do. And like has been said, there's obviously some stuff that you still have to do, and I think there's probably support for doing that, but it's reimbursing for past stuff. It's just that we didn't agree to. It's a difficult thing to try to say, yeah, we'll do that. And yeah, it's a one-off, but everybody's going to be a one-off, at some point. But I hear your pain as well, and we want to support you. I'm not sure I would agree to support, basically back paying for something we hadn't agreed to. But that's it.
Thank you, Commissioner. For myself, Mr. Schechtel, I absolutely hear how you were jammed up for time, and that you and Mr. Stevens felt like you had to make a decision or lose time, lose a year. A tough call. But as others have said, essentially we don't do this. I feel it would be imprudent. My heart says yes, let us find a way to make this happen, but I just my head says no. So I'm a no on this myself.
So the big issue for us is if we accept other things that may be eligible, we can't borrow any more money. We've borrowed everything against the building that we can, we wouldn't have income. We wouldn't have enough income to justify borrowing more money. So we're asking for a certain amount to be put forward on, even when an agreement was not available to us because there was no funds.
Anybody, because there were no funds.
It was not to anybody, but I don't know that there were any other projects that besides ours that was put on the shelf or had the same commitment that we had already made and we've been working on the prior year came back. So that's where it comes into. So I was trying to present this in a way that we need in order to get FreeBridge into that space where so they can expand their business, more jobs, more product, more tourists. We're asking for the reimbursement that we're immediately going to spend on finishing that. Without anything else outside of that, we would have to go find more money, and no bank will lend to us. We're at the maximum leverage on the property based on the value of the property. So that puts us in a like, well, now what we do, we have to go seek private funding. Private funding can be really expensive.
Yeah.
So we're kind of at a dead end. So even if we did a DFA,
Yeah.
something outside of the program, we wouldn't be able to spend 500 to get our 250 back. You know what I'm saying? We have to spend 500 bucks, 500,000 to get 250 back.
I don't know that math is quite right.
Well,
but
no, if we have to pay 50%,
is it?
My understanding is that.
Yeah. I think there's. Let's back up a sec. We have a question before us we need to answer. You've posed a question and we need to give you and staff an absolute answer. With regard to going forward, do you know that there are what we can do and what we have said yes to funds are available going forward, and there may be even a fruitful discussion. But I would say that's not the question for tonight. We absolutely have to give you and staff and ourselves an answer to the question in front of us. And I would say we do need to get to that one way or the other first.
Well, I'm not trying to make it more complicated. I'm just want to give context to the impact on us of this decision tonight. It's going to be really difficult for us to operate because we won't have cash flow. We don't have, we could wait for months and months and stack up some rent after we pay our bills and just piecemeal it out. But we're just still wasting time. And anyway.
What's the pleasure of the board? Are there questions? Do you have a question, Counselor? Is there anyone who would like to make a motion on the question before us? Mm-hmm. I'm going to say, in light of lack of emotion, if one is not forthcoming, I think we've declined.
Chair, I would move to deny the reimbursement request submitted by the Dalles Mint LLC on the basis that the expenses were incurred prior to entering into any agreement with the agency.
There's a motion. Is there a second to be had?
I'll second it.
Additional discussion. Hearing none, I'm going to call the vote. There's a motion to deny. All in favor of that motion, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 All right. Any abstained? Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We've said no to the reimbursement request. I'm
Chair,
personally,
if I may follow up.
Yeah.
One of the things that came up is it is clear that they are having cash flow issues. This board at the last meeting agreed to up to $250,000,
Yeah.
of which in order to get 250, they would have to spend 500 because it's 50-50.
50 match, yeah.
Is there any desire of the board to have staff work with the attorney to investigate whether or not to do any potential pre-funding of that so that they can continue moving forward. And it might be in smaller chunks so that if they can come up with their half, we could front load a little bit of that. And
They're not, just a question, they're not obligated. They would not be, just like anyone else, they would not be obligated to spend that. That's a do not exceed or an up to number.
that is an up to number. And so if they say they have $100,000 that they need to complete so that everything can be done. This goes back to the same conversations that we have in the past, where you've got to do some value engineering and decide what's important, right? And do you really need to do certain things or you've got stuff that's half built. And we want to see Freebridge succeed, and we want to see the Mint succeed.
Absolutely.
And they made some choices were business decisions that put them in a bind. And this is one of those instances where, we are one community and we're really one family. And is that something that the board would be interested in? Is if there's $100,000 in expenses, we could pre-fund 25 so that they can keep building, and then they put in their half, and then that gives them some of the cash. It would be a lot of work. It would be a lot of overview, but it would be difficult. But it's something that if you want to direct staff to entertain that idea and work with legal counsel to even think about it.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
I personally am in favor of that suggestion. Jake? I'm personally in favor of that, moving forward to investigate.
Okay.
If that's of interest, yes. Speaking for myself, I think what we're looking for here is a nodding of or a shaking of a head.
One more that we can add in thank you, Joshua. It says recipients must attach an executed agreement between the recipient and their contractor certifying and justifying why necessary funds are required before the contractor's necessary performance, in which case the agency at its sole discretion may elect to A, provide a disbursement covering up to one half of the recipient's necessary funds, and B, conditioning that disbursement on the recipient's execution of any appropriate security documents, i.e. trust deed, liens, to protect the agency's investment and ensure that public resources are secured to the maximum extent feasible. So there is more work, but the program will allow for it. But it's at your discretion.
I think I've seen enough assent here from the board to say, yes, carry out some see if there's some conversation with those, with the applicant offline, give them a chance to sort of chat with you, look at the numbers and see if it makes sense for them. And if so, then bring it to us. I've said more than once with regard to, well, these folks and other folks, give us a chance to say, yes, it's got to be within the guardrails that are set up that for good governance, we got to spend the money appropriately, but give us a chance to say yes. Yeah.
So can I jump in just very briefly? So what Jake just read to you is
yes, City Attorney Kara.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, what Jake just read to you was language that I wrote for our incentive program grant agreements. I understood from the last meeting, or maybe the meeting before, when the $250,000 was approved conditioned on the submittal by the applicant of some other documents. I don't think that this needs to go back to the board. I believe that the board sort of authorized that, conditioned on staff verifying that submittal. This is mostly just a question, I suppose, for the agency manager or for Jake. Is that the case? Because if that is the case, seems like we have the head nod to go ahead with it. I can draft that up pretty quickly.
Yeah, when I read it, it was at the sole discretion of the agency, which to me is you. It sounds like you are in favor of it, and so the discretion is given. And so we shouldn't have to come back to the board because you already pre-authorized the 200 up to 250,000. And the reason we did that was so that, because usually the agreement would come in front of you and then you would say yes, you would look at the whole thing. We pre-authorized it because they are on a time frame and we want to get them back into construction. And now you're continuing on that path, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
I think the answer is yes. Going forward, have some conversation and see if it works for them, and if we can do it within the parameters we've set up, make it happen.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you for your consideration.
I think, for what it's worth, you have a lot of folks that are very hopeful that a year from now, or some not too distant future, you have seen a completion of the project, that it's successful, that it's gotten carried out, and that we can look back and say that was a rough time to go through, but ultimately prevailed. Item 9D on our agenda, endorsement of the 2025 Transportation Growth Management Application. How's the board doing? Is everybody good to go on for a few minutes, or do you? All right. At my prerogative, I'm going to say let's take a 7-minute break and be back at 5 minutes till 8. Boy.
You can pause.
I got it.
I
won't be there.
I actually
Years to come.
This board was, and Shannon
Tough.
Goldman
Okay,
went
let's get
to,
going.
before he got elected, he said.
All right, saddle up, people. We got business.
Marathon. Break them.
Oh, absolutely.
You have 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Better get moving. 4 now.
Staff, we've
it.
got restless board member up here. We need
Yeah.
to like move it along.
Restless board syndrome.
Take all your time.
Members, plural.
Here's okay. Item 9D, endorsement of a 2025 transportation growth management application. What is it that you would like us to endorse?
Chair and members of the board, this is Jacob Anderson, Economic Development Officer. I will make this quick.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This is in 2024, the city applied for the Transportation Growth Management $200,000 grant to do the West Side Renaissance Study. And at the time, it came in front of the board of the Urban Renewal Agency, and most people go, well, why is the Urban Renewal Agency supporting this? And that is because a very small sliver of the west side is actually within the Urban Renewal Agency bounds. And so with that, it brings you into the fold. And what we're looking for is a letter of support, which is drafted and in your packet. I was unable to find last year's letter, so I hope you all reviewed that. And if you're good with that letter of support, we would love to attach that to the application that will be submitted by July 31st.
I'm really good with that letter.
Me too.
Are there any questions from the board?
No.
Yes, Jill.
I do have a question. Thank you, Chair. So in reading this, like at least one of the projects, other funding has been paused. So how does that work when we're going for a grant? One of the projects has been paused. What if we get funded? Do we just not spend the money?
So the list of projects that are you referencing the child care center?
Oh.
So the idea when you do master planning for this, the idea is we want to plan for the designs on the transportation system, and we want to ensure that we're building it for what likely could be there. That project may be paused today, but it may go in the future. And so what we want to do is when we're planning for it, we want to make sure that the roads are wide enough and that there's walkways and streets and everything else. The west side is cobbled together, I think is the best way to put it. And we want to make sure that it's gonna be there for the future. So just because one project is paused doesn't mean that we didn't get a letter of support from the school district and the college for that project. I think we all hope that the project comes back too. But no matter what, this is just the grant application. Once we get the grant, once we get authorized, then we'll have the grant agreement that will detail exactly what we're going to do. And at that time, and then that's when we will funnel the money for the contractor to do the designs where it's going to make the most amount of sense.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
And I think with this one too, it's something to point out. This time we won't be competing against Wasco County for the same grant who were awarded it this last year. So just wanted to add that to the story.
Other questions from the board? Any other questions? Anything from you, Commissioner Hagee? Are you okay with this? You okay with supporting this
Yes.
application now that Wasco County has gotten its bite at the apple?
Yep.
All right. Anybody else? Do we need a motion for this? I have set my, yeah. Do I hear a motion from the board? I would entertain, and do I hear one?
I would move to approve and endorse the 2025 Transportation Growth Management Grant Program.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the grant to support the 2025 Transportation Growth Management application with a letter, signify by saying aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? 0 on either of those. Motion passes. Item 9E, First Amendment to the Incentive Program Grant Agreement, Phase 2 with GMA Properties for the American Legion Hall Building at 201 East 2nd Street. Staff.
Chair and members of the board, I think this is one of our successful projects. I did a tour of it just a couple of weeks ago, and it looks amazing. And hopefully, they will be renting office space here in the next very short amount of time. The Jamays, this is the second property that they have been working on. And so what you have before you is your first amendment to a grant agreement that didn't have to come in front of you in the first place because it was under $50,000 when it was originally issued. The reason it's before you tonight is because the total grant for the property will be now go over $50,000 in accordance with our new rules. The reason why you see 49,000 is because that the way the Jamays do it is they enter into grant agreements for smaller amounts. Based on the available funds that they have to work with at the time. So they had, much like how the Mint had a grant agreement for 50,000, they used that, then you close out that grant, and then they came forward with another project, and then this is the first amendment to that project. The cost went up a little bit, as well as they had discussions with EDO, Dan Spots, about the scope increase for the insulation project. And so Dan had authorized that at the time. Prior to them doing any installation or any cost on that. There was a lot of discussion at the time about the windows. Replacing the windows can be really expensive. But at the time, they did not ask for reimbursement. So we figured that because they had not asked for anything for reimbursement, we can't reimburse for that at this point. Same issue as we had with the Met. But with the small increase and the things that we had agreed to, as well as the insulation, the small change from 41,976 to 49,620 was well within the grant program. We may see in the future, because the $300,000 is set by property, they may come back for a new grant agreement to do the basement, which was the old Legion Hall get-together gathering chambers.
That'd be a separate agreement.
That would be a separate agreement,
All right.
yes. Much like how they do everything else.
You ready for questions?
I'm ready for questions.
Comments? Questions or comments?
Make it so. I would just comment. It looks amazing. I've seen some of the pictures on social media. It sounds like they already have a tenant, the first tenant potentially lined up. So, yeah, I think it's a great project.
So,
Comments? Questions? I will read briefly from Councillor Ring, unless anybody objects. He writes, I support this request because it falls within the scope of a negotiated agreement. During the course of the project, we made the decision to increase the ceiling for this program, the incentive program, and this cost adjustment does not bring the total cost above the ceiling set in the current program's parameters. In other words, it's following the rules and he supports it. I do too. I mean, I guess I would hope it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway, that we're spending our time this evening and other hours and other meetings in the hopes that our neighbors downtown and in the urban renewal area are successful across the board. So it's good to be able to support. Is there a motion to be had on this matter?
Chair, I would move to authorize the agency manager to enter a First Amendment to the incentive program grant agreement with Jamay Properties as presented.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any further?
None.
I'm going to call the vote. All in favor of the motion to authorize the agency manager to enter into this First Amendment with Jamay Properties signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Object. How about item 10, board member comments and questions. Do we have any additional comments about urban renewal matters from the board this evening? Okay. Item 11, staff comments and project updates. Anything for the good of the order that just cannot wait?
Yeah, I think you've waited long enough for the First Street presentation, which was asked for. Due to the agenda here, I timed it right. It was going to be a long meeting, so I bought myself some time, and I didn't put the First Street presentation together for this evening. It's going to be back at the August meeting. I promise you that. It's also going to be presented in front of City Council. We're going to actually do it at City Council first due to some timing. City Council likes to take a recess during the month of August. So we wanted to get it on the agenda instead of push it out until September, because we are going to be, hopefully moving into some more of the final stages of bid documents and things like that. So we'll have a presentation in front of council. Anyone's able to come, you're more than welcome. But that same presentation will be had here at the August meeting. So it's really just going to be, it's a PowerPoint presentation that's going over a little bit of the history. There's some photos talking about some costs, talking about some timelines, really just kind of an overview of the project to kind of bring some people into the fold that maybe haven't been involved with the project or are too familiar with it, even though we have talked about it for a very, very long time. And then the last is over on First Street. I may have mentioned this before, but we worked with the agency, funded the resurfacing of those two parking lots, the agency parking lots. We worked with the city's transportation division. I think if you haven't been up there, they did an amazing job on those parking lots. I know we're talking about parking spaces, but it looks beautiful up there. So go up, take a look. It's new, fresh parking spaces. The agency spent probably around $100,000 to do the work, a little bit more than we had gotten into when we thought it was just a restripe job. But as I discussed with you in years past, we tried to get up there just to do some restriping, and the condition, it was just trashed. So what we ended up doing, we actually had an archaeological permit go through to monitor the work that was being done, scraped up all the old asphalt, laid down new asphalt. It was an opportunity too for the city to try out some new equipment to kind of cut around some of those tight corners. So all in all, it looks great, and add some, I think, around 55 usable parking spaces to our downtown now. So that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Anything else for the good of the order? Meeting adjourned.
Really upset that meeting didn't go long enough.
Moving for a record.
Yeah, really wanted a record there.
Donates the building free of charge. Store only the goods that are coming into the